We are here to tell you how to take your fucking turn.
Jesus Christ.
Because this is a problem.
That's right.
That is a sin against God and man. That number right there. But if you go to like gaming forums, you go to Board Game Geek, you go anywhere, any community in gaming, one of the primary complaints is, hey, I can't find anyone to game with. We've done a panel about that.
I wonder why. Maybe because adults don't have 240 to 480 minutes to do nothing.
I barely have an hour to be in this room to do this.
All right, anyone in the hallway can just come on in. All right.
So we're going to talk about a lot of topics here because a really important part of this is that now that I'm in my 30s as opposed to my 20s, one, MAGFest gets a little tiring at 3 in the morning and I go to bed.
I'm going to sleep after this panel.
Yeah. But two, don't waste your life. If a game takes 240 to 480 minutes and not all of those minutes are fun, maybe you shouldn't be wasting that time. And this is a concern that has gone throughout all of history. If many of you know the history of chess, chess was boring, and people tried to make it faster because it took too long.
Right, the original rules of chess, you move pawns one space, which means at the start of the game, everyone was like,
Pawn pushing was a problem.
If you learn chess now, they don't even tell you that the rules were changed. It's just like, yeah, if a pawn's in the starting spot, you can move it 2, and then after that, you move it 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. And that's just like an accepted rule. That was a rule that was made because chess was too slow and boring. They changed it.
And if you look at chess, backgammon is a good example too. All these old games, there's two kinds of games in the world. Games that are designed and games that evolved. Games like chess evolved over history and society, and there's a lot of complicated reasons. There's no game designer. You can't say Joey Jojo Shabadoo wrote chess. But as a result, you see this natural trend of people see the games take too long, they get bored, and they design the games to take less time and go faster. The other thing I gotta warn you about is that we are those people, if you take more than 2 seconds on your turn, even in like a
Scott Johnson.
Scott, is he here? No,
I'm expecting him to walk. Last time we mentioned him at a panel, he walked in the door shortly thereafter. He is here.
We have a photo of him later in this panel because he is famous for not taking his fucking turn.
That's right.
So, but if you play games with us, like, we're those people. If someone takes more than 2 or 3 seconds on their turn, we're already like pounding on the table and applying social pressure. Like, we're mad.
I don't got time for this. Let's play.
Yeah. But at the same time, we like train games. Train games take between 4 and 40 hours to finish, and somehow we like them. So the thing I want to talk about, there's this idea of a fun economy, as illustrated by this beautiful stock image that I bought on Adobe Stock Images of 2 people having a delightful time. And this is something I really want you to think about. This is sort of the whole moral of the panel. The fun you had divided by the time you spent is how much fun you actually had. If I play a 4-hour game and it's like, fun, that is not as good in an objective sense as a game that takes 5 minutes that's also just fun. So I really want you to think about this when you play games. Think about, like, yeah, this game was fun, but was it worth it? How much fuel economy or fun economy did I actually get out of this game?
Right, and you got to think about it not just in terms of games, but in life, but especially at a MAGFest, where you've only got X hours of MAGFest, and you got to maximize, get the most out of that MAGFest.
You're already wasting an hour of it in this room.
I don't know why you're doing that, but you're not going to get another MAGFest for 360-something days, right? So don't squander.
So let's talk about some games. Let's look at this. Deep Sea Adventure, pretty fun game. It's not that fun. It's okay. It's a pretty fun game. You get like 1 unit of fun out of it. But it takes like 10 minutes to play. It takes 30 seconds to teach this game.
And not just the teaching, not just the playing, the setting up and the tearing down, right, also takes time, right? This game, you dump it out of a box, you play it like within a second, and then when you put it away, you just sweep it into the box, right?
Yep.
You don't got to organize any bits, you don't got to count anything, you don't got to do nothing.
It's a game we play while we're waiting for someone to finish pooping so we can play the bigger game that needs 6 players. Oh, what? People gotta poop.
I just pooped.
But then there's a game like 1846, Race for the Midwest.
A train game that we love.
That game is exactly what it looks like. But that game takes a long time.
Well, if you have your friend Chris there who knows all the rules and manages all the mechanisms.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, it goes a lot faster. But if not, it's going to be slow. And it's going to be slow even with Chris.
Now, don't think we're just saying that short games are better. That game's only a little bit fun. This game is objectively more fun. There's more meat. There's more stuff to do. I get things out of this game that I cannot get out of this game. But it takes way more time to play this game to get that fun. I think the economy of this game is fine. Like, the fun I get out of it is worth the time. But it might not be for you. You really need to think about how much is your time worth to you and how much fun are you really having. I don't know why people still play Monopoly, but they do. I'm not saying Monopoly is zero fun. Monopoly is 0.01 fun. Monopoly has this little bit of fun, like when you think like,
especially at the start of the game.
Yeah.
Before everyone buys all the properties.
Like, no one actually likes McDonald's. No one, except little kids. No one really likes White Castle. But sometimes you eat McDonald's. No one knows why, but it just happens.
It doesn't happen to me.
Your body is just like, hey, eat that garbage. I want that garbage. Monopoly's like that. You feel like you want to play it, and for a brief moment when you set the board up, you're like, oh, this is going to be fun. And then it isn't. But yet people keep playing Monopoly, people keep complaining. It's like a joke that Monopoly takes too long. The moral of this panel really is just don't play Monopoly, and your life will be better.
Even non-nerds, right, know the deal with Monopoly. We were at PAX Unplugged, and there were like security guards, and because they found out that it was a board game convention, they were talking about Monopoly, because they didn't know about Settlers or whatever, right? They're security guards. I guess they weren't into the scene. And they were like, oh man, yeah, I love Monopoly. I play it all the time. We just quit before, it ends because it takes too long. Like, they know.
Monopoly is just generational trauma inflicted by parents on children forever. Mm-hmm. Now, fun is hard to define. So sometimes a game takes a long time, but it gives you something else, like socialization. Wizard is an amazing trick-taking game. We really love it. It takes a while to play, like it's not a short game. It's pretty fun, but it's not the most fun. But that time we spend is spent socializing. The game gives you space to socialize, to hang out with your friends. So while it takes a while, we're still getting something out of it.
Oh yeah, you can definitely beer it up with a game of Wizard in a way you cannot beer up 1846 Race for the Midwest.
Yeah, the more beer you have, the worse this game is.
Yeah,
I speak from
trains
experience.
will derail if you...
So, fun is a complicated concept. Like, if any of you have played Dwarf Fortress, that game's fun.
For somebody.
By a very specific definition of the word fun. So part of this is you have to think about, what do you want out of the game? Is the game just an excuse to hang out with your friends? Because that will trap them in your house forever. Some games, yeah, right?
We're not playing the woo game here.
But this is where we talk about the idea of elegance. When we look at games, like the two of us, the games we like the most, the games we respect the most, are the games that respect us. They respect the player. They are elegant, meaning they use the least complication, the least time, and the least complexity to make the most fun experience. Root is a super grognardy asymmetric political war game designed to not actually take that long to play.
Yeah, I don't know if people really realize this about Root. It's sort of like the biggest scam of the past few years, and when it come out 2-3 years ago, something like that, right? This is basically just an old grognard scary war game. They just replaced like all the pictures of Napoleon with pictures of birds and suddenly fooled everyone into playing it. There's really no rules difference whatsoever. So if you like Root and you go to the game store and you see
you
see a dusty Napoleon, it's a lot like Root. You should probably play it and you'll like it.
But Root has a modern sensibility. The designer of Root, like the game is designed to be like one of those war games, but it also has a modern sensibility. It's elegant, it's simple, it's quick to teach, it's quick to play. If a game is elegant, it is almost guaranteed to be an objectively better game by almost any measure you could come up with. Those old grognard war games, you get more fun out of them than you get out of Root. There's that little extra bit there. These games do something that other games can't do, but they take a lot more time. They're not elegant. These games are, in fact, the opposite of elegance. That image, I don't know what that game's from. I literally typed this into Google image search, and that was the second result. And of course, if you play with the advanced rules, all bets are off.
That's a real game.
That game is almost a joke. That game, the campaign for North Africa, what did Scott say in the last panel, possibly takes longer to play than the actual campaign for North Africa. The game's almost a joke. The rules are super complicated. You're supposed to read them and laugh at them. You're not supposed to play it. You could play it.
Someone has played it somewhere.
Yeah. There was, I think, a Kotaku article where someone like broke this game down and how ridiculous it is.
Anyway.
So first we want to talk about the mechanics, like what makes a game take so long.
Right.
Then we're going to talk about, for all of you, how you can make games be faster for you. And then I suggest that you teach these skills to your friends.
Or make them watch a video of this panel, which is on YouTube. You could leave right now and just watch the previous iteration of this panel.
From PAX Unplugged.
There's no reason for you to stay here. You can go play arcade right now, just letting you know.
The only difference between that version of the panel and this version
I'm not joking, go ahead.
is that I'm a little drunker.
Okay.
So why do games take so long? We can only blame one of two things, the player or the game. But it turns out it's a little more complicated than that because usually we can blame both of them to some degree. So first off, let's look at Monopoly. Monopoly, the game is designed badly. The game does not have any incentive, any mechanic, or any economy that forces itself to end.
Right. So think about the perfect game, which is tennis, right? In tennis, if the game is not over, everyone can win, right? If you want to make it a little simpler, think about Pong. Pong is just tennis, right?
Yep.
If you could be 9-0 in Pong, you win when you get 10 points. The game is still going. As soon as someone gets 10 points, game immediately ends. In Monopoly, you get a situation where after the first few times around the board, it is obvious who is going to win this Monopoly. Yeah, that person has all the yellows and all the oranges, which are the best ones.
Yellows ain't shit, you did that orange.
I've said the oranges are the best ones, right? But I was like, this person is killing it. They had great roles. They got monopolies. They're building houses and hotels. They're going to win if we keep going around the board forever, right? But wait. In order for them to actually officially win Monopoly, everyone else must be bankrupt. Even if that will eventually happen statistically, it will take a while. There are going to be times where the person goes around the board and skips over all the hotels. There's going to be times when they go to jail and skip all the boardwalk
Even
hotels.
worse, the game keeps giving you money. So as you're going around,
constantly pushing everyone away from losing. It's making, right? And then people go ahead and play Monopoly wrong, and they put money on free parking, which doesn't belong there.
that's the players.
Yeah, that's the players, not the game. That's why the players have a little bit there.
We
But
did
if you do that, you're making Monopoly longer by putting more money in the economy. You need to take money out of the economy to make the game end.
Well-designed games are designed to force a conclusion, to force the game to end, to force players to make the game end. Monopoly is like, oh, you wanted the game to end?
Right.
No.
But it's not just making the game, pushing the game towards ending. It's also ending as soon as we've determined who the winner is, right? Don't have garbage time where, like in a football game, yeah, we know who won. You're up ahead. The Patriots are up by 30, but we got to play another quarter just because. It's like, no, just fucking end it. Unless you got TV commercials to run. Then end it.
So this is a win probability graph from a Seahawks game from a few years ago. And when we talk about sports, the beauty of sports, like most sports, is that they end when they end. So,
most of them.
Most of them. Most of the time. I mean, we were at a hockey game once that ended 24-0. Yeah, hockey, 24-0. It was amazing. But this graph, like the game was not actually yet over at this point. It looked like it was over, but it wasn't because theoretically, with very good play and a bunch of turnovers and some onside kicks and some luck, they could win this game even when the chances were basically zero. But in Monopoly, the chance is basically zero. You're never coming back in Monopoly.
Right. It's not like they're just going to give you all their property. It's like, okay, I see you're losing. Here, have property.
But before we can go further, we actually have to talk about some mechanics because to really explain why Monopoly takes so long and why this is a problem, we have to talk about some concepts that require a little bit of knowledge. There's a book called Characteristics of Games.
All of our panels about games are just stolen from this book, which is written by Richard Garfield and friends. Richard Garfield made Magic. Some of the friends were like the people who made the Magic tournament system. If you read that book, you don't have to pay attention to us. We're just telling you what we read in this book.
This book is Game Design 101. It is a seminal work in game design.
It reads like a textbook. It's a little hard to read.
Yeah, but it's worth it. Like, I suggest all of you buy it. This book is amazing. Even if you don't want to make games, it'll give you insight into what you like about games. But he has this concept in the book of bushiness. And he likes to not use very prescriptive definitions because we're nerds.
Pedants will argue with him.
You know, every one of you wants to argue about what really is a game. We want to argue about that crap forever. Well, what's an RPG? Well, what if I just role play while I'm playing Monopoly? Is that an RPG? Fuck you. No, that's stupid. So we use this vague definition. A game is sparse if players don't have much to do. They don't have decisions to make. And a game is bushy if there are many decisions to make. Like, just think about it that way. The more bushy a game is, the more things you can do that influence the game. So if we look at a graph of bushiness of a sport like American football, you don't have more options later in football. You have the same options throughout the entire game. The game is never more or less complex, except this little bit at the end, because suddenly some options that are stupid in the beginning of a football game become possibly worth it if you're losing at the end of a football game.
Right, it's like you could do an onside kick on like
Yep.
the first play of the game, but you wouldn't.
Like hockey, that is pulling the goalie. You don't pull the goalie in the first period, usually. So the bushiness of sports
That's a
tends to
delayed
be...
penalty.
Well, yeah, delayed penalty. But that's that little like delayed penalty right there, and then there's power play, delayed penalty, power play.
Right, you get the idea.
But it's relatively consistent. But Monopoly...
Right, early in a game of Monopoly, right, you don't have much control over your movement. You roll the dice, you move, but then you have decisions. Do I buy the property? Do we do the auction? Do I buy houses? Do I buy hotels? Do I use a get out of jail free card? Do I try to roll my way out of jail? Do I just pay the 50 and bail myself out, right?
Yep.
You got some choices. Once all the properties are bought, all your choices are roll until someone wins.
Hope you go to jail.
And occasionally jail.
So you can't make any decisions, and thus lies the valley of despair. That is why Monopoly sucks. It's not, you can't come back. It's not like football where you can make a Hail Mary and maybe make it. You can't come back. There's literally nothing you can do to influence the game but keep rolling dice and just wait.
Pray.
Wait and pray. What about a classic like tabletop miniatures elimination game?
Like a Warhammer.
Or chess. Right? It's
Early in the game, you got a lot of dudes, which means you got a lot of stuff you can do. I can move this dude or that dude or the other dude, right? And then guys die, and then you have less dudes. So there's less decisions to make. Well, do I remove this remaining dude or that remaining dude? Everyone else is dead.
That is why chess ends, because in the beginning of chess, humans can't really make like good decisions because we can't explore the whole tree. So humans, it might take a long time to make your decisions in the early part of a chess game, but as the game goes on, the decisions become more complicated for humans because we start calculating specific numbers of rounds in advance to try to get to an end game state in chess. We can only do that because the game is less bushy. If chess was more complex later, chess would never end.
Right, so this is what we're talking about. We're talking about the speed of games. When the game is bushy, there's a lot of different options to you. The beginning of Warhammer, you got to think about it. Right? I was just in a friggin' restaurant, what's that place called? Maheva, whatever?
I don't know why you had so much trouble with this restaurant.
And, you know, if you go to normally like a salad restaurant, it's like, yeah, you can make whatever salad you want, but they have some designed salads. You just pick one, right? This place, they had like pitas and falafel kind of stuff, right? But there was no designed bowl or designed wrap or whatever. You just had to pick every ingredient. And I'm just sitting there like, Jesus, I don't fucking know.
Do I want feta?
There's too many choices.
Pickled feta.
Right? Well, there's a lot of choices. You're stuck thinking a lot, and it takes more time. If you narrow the choices down, things get a lot faster. It's like, oh, I know. I only got two guys. Move that one.
You know the term analysis paralysis? The reason why your friend won't take their turn? If you're up here, that's why that happens. Well, that's one of the reasons why that happens. Most tabletop games follow a pretty classic arc. There's a simple beginning set. The game gets a little bit more complex for a while, and then you're buying those victory point cards, and the game ends.
Right.
Pretty straightforward. Get those perps in Seven Wonders toward the end.
Right, think about Dominion, right? In Dominion, okay, well, I've only got $3, so I can buy a silver, right? There's not a lot of choices in the early game. Then you start to get some cards, and you can build fancy combos, but then as the game's getting closer to the end, it's like, I don't have to decide what to buy. I'm buying provinces and more provinces.
Yep, and then you get to Duchy Panic Time. Buy duchies.
Yeah, oh shit, I can't afford a province. I guess I'm buying 2 or 3 duchies.
And then if you're lucky, you see the magical estate panic time. That's when you know that game's about to end in seconds. Or maybe witches come out. So think about this definition, this concept of bushiness, because that is why Everdell takes for fucking ever, even though it's an amazing game. Everdell is a great game. I love it. It's got this beautiful tree. It's a really fun game, but Everdell has a problem. The bushiness of Everdell actually increases as the game goes on. You have more choices and more choices and more choices. And if you're playing and trying to win, you gotta worry about all those choices. So if a game's bushiness increases as time goes on, it will take longer no matter how good the players are. I'm actually going to go back to Everdell because Everdell has another problem. Everdell has a bunch of different fiddly mechanics, which is fine, but some of those mechanics are interactive, but most of them are not. Interactive meaning they interact with other players. So because those cards exist at all, I have to worry about them even if I haven't seen them yet. Meaning, I have to look at everyone else's display to see what they've got and worry about their crap when, if those cards didn't exist at all, or if all the cards did that, then I could set much more reasonable expectations. Everdell also has a problem that Wingspan also has. Every card in Wingspan is unique.
Right.
Every single bird is unique in Wingspan.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone's played Wingspan. Wingspan's a game with this huge deck of cards, and every single card in the deck is a different North American bird with different rules written on it, right? So you can learn a lot about North American birds from this game, I guess. I think they're coming out with a European bird one soon.
It already came out.
Have fun with that. Yeah. But it's like, the thing with Wingspan is you don't actually need to know all the birds, right? None of them are like, if even one bird was like the win the game bird or had some crazy power on it, then you would have to spend the whole game thinking, what if Rim has that bird? What if that bird is drawn next? I have to always be prepared to buy the bird if it appears on the board at any time because it's a crazy bird.
If you ever played a game St. Petersburg, there's one of the nobles, and if that noble comes out in the second round, whoever buys it wins the game no matter what.
Right.
So you got to worry about that the whole game until you get past the second round.
But all the birds in Wingspan are actually pretty reasonable. They do similar things. None of them are crazy or game-changing. So you don't have to constantly be worried about, well, what if this bird comes out? Well, what if that one comes out? You just look at the ones that are out now, right? You have a general expectation that anything that could appear isn't, you know, off the wall. And you just only think about what you can see and don't think about what's in the deck, and you will be just fine.
They're all consistent. You can predict, based on the ones you've seen, the kinds of things other ones could do. Everdell, those cards are all over the map. It's almost like a Carl Chuddick game. So all those unique powers, there's this interesting concept of heuristics. We're not going to go deep into it really yet, but it's the idea that like how you make decisions in games. So in a game like Wingspan, the cards are all unique, and maybe knowledge of birds would help you, but probably not. This game, Quartermaster General, has a ton of unique cards, and they're hyper unique. They're like Everdell. They're all over the place. Like, if there are troops in this part of Asia on this turn, then troops appear in this part of Asia on this other turn. Ridiculous nonsense. But if you know even a little bit about World War II, they all make sense. You can predict what will happen. Your external knowledge makes these cards predictable and understandable, and so this game becomes more like Wingspan than it would be if you didn't know anything about World War II.
Something else about this game as Quartermaster General, right, is that it's a fancy war game. Oh my God, it's crazy. You don't even see the map in this picture, just the cards, right? But all you do on your turn is play a card. That's it. It just go around, play card, right? So it plays pretty fast. Right? It feels fast, even if the game takes several hours, which it doesn't. But even if it did, it would feel like it wasn't going slow because your turn comes up pretty often and your turn is quick. So it's like you're getting hit up pretty good, right? You know, you're not spending any time going, waiting for everyone else to take their turn. Whereas you play Campaign for North Africa, you can go on a vacation and come back, and your player's turn, the other opponent's turn might be half over, right? And it feels long, even if the actual length of the game was equal, right? All the time you spend sleeping makes the game feel longer than it is, and it's the game design's fault, right? Look at something like Ticket to Ride. On your turn, all you do in Ticket to Ride is either take routes, take trains, or put trains. One of the three, and it's like bam, 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 bam. In Route doesn't really take longer or shorter than Ticket to Ride if everyone knows what they're doing. But in Route, if you got 4 players, your turn's over. You take a nap, you go get a soda, whatever. Everyone else is doing their turn and you're doing nothing, right? You can't really decide what to do on your turn until everyone else is done anyway, right? Unless you're like the otters trying to sell your cards off in the market or something like that, right? You don't do much when it's not your turn, and it takes a while for people to take their turns. Morning, day, right? Come
So
on.
if a game has a lot of really unique things, either they all have to be very similar to each other, or the game has to be based in some real-world thing that the players are assumed to know something about, or the turns have to be really simple and really quick. You can't have any other complicated systems in the game. If any 2 of those things are true, the game will take forever. So there is a third thing we can blame. Sometimes we can blame the fact that it's a tabletop game.
Right. If you played BattleTech on a computer, it is super fast, right?
If then you bought that game on Steam, it's really fun and super fast.
But if you play it in person, it's like roll 2d6, look up stuff in a chart. Roll 2d6, look up stuff in a chart. Roll 2d6, be thankful you have a friend who's memorized the chart.
Yep.
All right? It's really fun to fill in all those little bubbles, but it just takes a long time, not because it's long, but just because the mechanism, no matter how good you are, it just takes a long time to roll, consult, fill, roll, consult, fill. Just doing it, the process is slow.
Now, this isn't necessarily bad, because that busy work, in characteristics of games, they talk about this concept of busy work. Sometimes busy work causes downtime, meaning you have some time when you're not engaged with the game to internalize information you've seen in the game. Like, while you're filling in those little bubbles, you're thinking about the state of your mech and you're internalizing that information, which is a good thing for the game. Or you have some time to go to the bathroom or talk to a friend or think about your turn. So sometimes the game takes a little longer by the nature of the medium, but that actually makes the game a better experience. But at the same time, some games have a lot of busy work that does not contribute anything to the game. I'm looking at you, almost every kickstarted game.
Right. It's all about the busy work being the correct amount of time, right? If the busy work and the waiting between turns, right? If you can fill all that time thinking about your next turn and planning, and then it's suddenly your turn again, that is perfect. Right? If your turn comes around again and you're still thinking, well, that's not good because that means your turn is going to be slowed down because you're still trying to figure out what to do. And if your turn comes around but you thought about your turn way long ago, that means you were sleeping in between turns and you're bored and the game feels slow. Even if the game only takes 30 minutes, it can feel slow. Even if the game is 2 hours, it can feel fast.
Yep, but the high drama when Scott's rolling 2d6 over and over and I'm waiting to find out what happened.
You got a Gauss rifle to the head, that's what happened.
Yep, but sometimes ooh, right center torso, roll for crit. Crit, did the ammo explode? Yes, Rim is dead. But that tension is increased by the slightly extra time it took to figure that out. Some games are just terrible. I blame the players for even playing this game. But specifically what we're talking about mechanically, I don't want to just dunk on this game, is some games...
It's too easy. It's like dunking in a kiddie basketball net.
This game has this particular mechanic that you see in a lot of games that take an intellectual property and stick it on some game. The game is a political game, but not political in politics, but political in a game theory sense, meaning if the players play skilled, play with skill and play well, the game is determined by who the players agree will win the game.
Right, it's a vote who wins game. Any game that has two players or two teams cannot be political because one team or player is saying, I want to win, and the other team, everyone votes for themselves, right? As soon as you have a third player, it still might not be a political game if it's a race, a 100-meter dash, right? Everyone is still voting for themselves and can't really mess up the other players in any way.
But if me, Scott, and Joey Jojo are playing a game, and I'm pissed at Scott for some reason, and Scott's winning, and Joey Jojo is in second place, I might attack Scott to let Joey Jojo win.
Right, any game where there's any amount of interactivity, it doesn't just have to be direct attacking, like Risk, or Attack Rim. Any amount of interactivity at all, any amount of shared resources or shared space means that you can interfere with the other players and help them get more or fewer victory points.
But right? Munchkin and games like it, a lot of games have this exact mechanic. The game just goes along, there's no real skill involved, but eventually someone's about to win, unless all the other players dogpile on them to stop them. Then someone else is about to win, and you start playing whack-a-mole to stop people from winning, and that mechanic, much like Monopoly, ensures the game just won't end because no one will let it end. The players choose to not let the game end. So if you ever play a game like this and someone's winning, my advice to you, let them win.
Even
because then you are free.
Even if you don't win Munchkin, you win by being free.
You win
to
life.
Continue playing Munchkin.
So we're talking about politics. This is a graph from that book that talks about return on skill. Depending on how skilled you are, how much does the game reward you for that skill? And because all games are inherently political, eventually everyone's playing perfectly. In most German board games, like serious Euro games, once you're good at the game, everyone's good at the game, and then your skill doesn't matter anymore. As you add more politics, attacking other players, directly interacting, politics becomes the only thing that matters. If you play Risk, the only thing that matters is who gets attacked and how often.
Right, so let's say me and Rim are playing Risk. Oh, me, Rim, and someone else, Joey Jojo, are all playing Risk, right? If I'm better at Risk than Rim and Joey Jojo, I can blow them out, even if they try to gang up on me because I'm so smart, right? But now imagine that we're all equally smart. We're all maximum. We are the best at Risk that you can be. Well, then who's going to win? It's going to come down to the luck of the dice, and it's going to come down to voting who wins, right? Who did I decide to hurt Joey Jojo more? Well, that made Rim win. right? Not because of anything Rim did to earn victory, simply because we voted who wins indirectly, right? Not so. There are games where you directly vote who wins, like that zombie mall game.
Oh, God.
You literally vote who to send out to the zombies.
Every round you vote on who loses, and eventually everyone loses and someone wins. Scott wasn't playing. We were all playing in like a beach house, and every round Scott keeps yelling across the room, "Don't vote for Rim in the vote who wins game. Don't vote for." I won in the end because everyone was annoyed at Scott and they started voting for me.
All right, well, they can, if they don't want to lose, that's their problem.
Sometimes you run into
Scott Johnson's still
Scott
in the show.
Johnson's not here.
Okay.
So there's, analysis paralysis. What does that really mean? If a game has things you can calculate, and doing those calculations gives you a better chance of winning, but doing those calculations is difficult and time consuming, that game will take forever. You either have to not give the players the information necessary to even try to calculate, or just show them the magic number so they can get past that.
Right, so there's some games where no matter how much you calculate, you can never ever figure out the perfect move.
Like chess.
Right,
You're
at least
gonna
not with
think,
your human brain.
No human will think hard enough at chess to ever beat an AI. Like, you cannot think that much.
Right, but in a game like Acquire, this game is actually possible if you know math to play perfectly. You can sit there and do some pretty basic high school math, spend some time on it, look at the board, and say, that is the move that will get me the most money and the most points and the highest chance of winning. I will do that move. It just takes a little while to figure it out, all right? Which means it encourages people to do exactly that. And then the game is really slow because it gets around to your turn and you think it, make perfect move. Next person does the same thing and you go get Cheetos.
But I don't blame the game that much because that's one of the skills. I would say that one of the skills of playing these kinds of games is to be faster at calculating those kinds of things. In this third part of the panel, we'll talk about how you can all be faster at that. You'll start to hate all your friends, like I'm warning you right now, but you'll get better at this. I blame the players because if a player is spending a lot of time trying to figure out the optimal move, they would be better served by just doing something. Just do something and try to learn the game more intuitively.
Also, isn't someone who can figure out that optimal move faster, right? This game doesn't care how long it took you to decide on your move, right? It gives you the same victory whether it took you 5 hours to take your turn or 5 minutes.
But I care how long you took.
Right, but I feel like, hey, just personally in all games, if I arrived at the perfect move in 1 minute and you arrived at it in 10 minutes, that means I'm better than you, I should win, right?
Yeah. But also it comes down to this idea of like respecting your friends and your friends' time. If you're the one who always takes forever on your turn, if you just went faster, everyone would be happier. That's why I blame the player and the game. But again, we're going to talk about how you can actually be a lot faster. So what about, there's this concept, some games, this is a different train game, a space train game.
Yeah, that's why it doesn't look like trains, but trust me, it's a train game.
It's space trains. We got kicked out of the tabletop area at PAX Unplugged, PAX West, because this game took too long and midnight came and they kicked everybody out.
So in most of the train games, your trains have a route. And every turn, maybe you add a little piece of track, or maybe you upgrade your train and your route improves a little bit, but it mostly stays the same route. You're like, yeah, that's the best route on the board that includes the best cities. I'm not really going to change my route too much. Even when it gets a little upgrade, I'll change a little bit. So your decision during that part of the game is very small. You're like, okay, my route was 80, now it's 90. In this game, when you make your train route, you're picking up, different minerals from around the solar galaxy, whatever it is, I don't know.
The fiction barely matters.
Asteroid field, right? And you're collecting them, which means other people can't collect them. And there's a turn order. So you can't just keep the route you had from last turn. You have to recalculate it every single turn for every spaceship. Suddenly it's like, well, you wait for everyone else to do it, then you come to it with fresh eyes, starting from scratch, and you say, well, what's the best minerals this ship can pick up? What's the best minerals this ship can pick up? It's a brand new thing every turn. You're redoing it all the time. It takes forever.
Even worse, you can't even start doing that calculation until the person before you completely finishes their turn. The board state changes so much that you can't even make any plans. You might as well just sleep and wait. So if a game does not let you do some amount of planning between turns, the game will take forever, and I would say it's bad game design.
Right, there's no special technique either, like with Acquire, I'll just be better at math. Like, there's nothing you can do to improve your skills to do this faster. It's just the way the game works. Deal with it. Or don't play it.
So this game is fantastic, but if a game has unbounded political bartering, trading, anything like that, where there's no mechanic that forces the trading to stop, a certain kind of player will spend forever arguing about whether to turn 2 cubes into 2.5 cubes or not.
Right, I'll trade you 3 spice if you don't attack, me in this place,
I'll sell you
2 exeech.
I will sell you the option to buy 4 spice from me if you attack Iraq that place on Tuesday.
Right,
If
you ally with me during the sandworm phase, I will give you 2 treachery cards. No, 3 treachery cards.
Good games that have bartering and trading will have mechanics that force the trading to end or force players to come to a conclusion. If that is not there, you're at the mercy of the jerks at the table. And you all know, you're at MAGFest, you all have that one friend who will not be nice.
Also, you want to limit the types of things that can be traded. There are certain games, I don't know if everyone's played Genoa.
Oh God, Genoa.
Genoa is a game where you can trade literally anything for anything. You can trade money for a card, for a cube, for a whatever, and that sounds awesome. But the reality is that because there's so many options, the bushiness of your possible trades is insane. Move me 2 spaces and let me use that building, and I'll give you this card and a dollar. It's like, I'll make you a loan. There's so many options.
I've heard tales of people literally coming up with futures contracts in the context of this game.
Right. It will take you forever because there are too many options.
Dune and Vast made by the same people who made Root, also have a problem. It's not a problem, but it will make games take longer. There's almost nothing you can do about it. If the game is very asymmetric, it's very difficult for people to fully learn the game, and if people don't fully learn the game, they will have a hard time taking their turn because they have a hard time making decisions. It takes a long time to teach someone to play Vast, because Vast is a game where one person plays the knight, and one person plays the dragon, and one person plays the fucking cave they're having a fight in. And they're playing completely different games with completely different rules. So while I'd say that is 100% the game's fault, it's also mostly the player's fault, because honestly, these games are great. An asymmetric game like Vast, there is nothing else like that on Earth. That game is a weird experience that you cannot replicate any other way. Asymmetric games are fun. But to have that fun, you need to respect the other people at the table enough to actually learn how to play the game enough to where this isn't a problem anymore, if you want to have that experience. Some games, I'm not even getting into what the deal is with this game. This is John Company. I love this game.
Also made by the same guy who made Root.
Yep.
He seems to be pretty hot lately, that Cole guy.
Cole Werrell is on a roll with
games. He's on a roll. His new game's going to be on Kickstarter pretty soon, by the way.
If a game has multiple systems, a game has like a system, like here's how you get money, and here's how you build train tracks, and here's how you shoot people. If those systems are very different from each other, then the game will take forever because players have to keep changing context. Even worse, if those systems are different from how those systems are in other similar games, that game is just done.
Right, so think about, most games, there are certain things that are like taken for granted, right? It's like take your turn, play goes to the left, right? In some games, like Illuminati, play goes to the right.
Thank you, Steve Jackson.
Right. Why? Is there a reason for being different from every other game and making everyone's brains slow down and get confused? Right? What is the reason for that? That better be the focus of your game. That better be the highlight of your game if that is the thing you're going to do differently, right? So if you're making a drafting game, it's about drafting, like 7 Wonders or Sushi Go, a game about card drafting. You can do a funky card draft that's different from all the other card drafts because that's the highlight of your game. But if that game also has some other system in it, like a market or I don't know, it better be a completely normal one that follows all regular player expectations because people don't got room in their brain for 2 exceptional systems.
Yep. If a game has one weird thing, it's probably good. If a game has more than one weird thing, it's either a brilliant game or a terrible game, and there's almost no middle ground there. So some games, we'll talk about heuristics in a bit. I keep saying that word. We'll talk about that word. But chess has at least this thin fiction. If you take someone who's never played chess and say, you are trying to kill that other king while protecting your king, they'll look and say, okay, I got these horse guys. I'll move him toward that king. That's better than random. You're already better than a random chess program. Go, what the fuck do you do here? It's
Right,
just pieces.
even if you tell someone the goal in Go is to surround the other player's pieces and to capture territory, which is what it is, and they're trying to surround the other player's pieces, they will have a very bad time.
Yep.
You're going to lose doing that. I've lost that way many times.
It's worse because natural heuristics, like if you play a World War II game and you're the Allies, you know, go attack the Nazis. Like, it's a pretty obvious rule. But in this, if you do the thing that seems obvious and try to surround pieces, that's actually one of the worst possible strategies, but there's no way to know that.
You're going to end up playing, if you play Go like Tron, like bicycles, right, you're going to have a real bad time.
So, the final part of the panel. And I'm going to warn you, we're going to teach you some things right now. If you do those things, you will find that you hate most of your friends and you hate most games. You're really, like, I'm not joking. If someone takes more than 5 seconds to take their turn in a game, I start to get antsy. I start to get mad at them, unreasonably mad.
Right. I mean, we just talked about all the times where it's a game's fault that the game is slow. It's not always the player's fault, but it's sometimes the player's fault. It's often the player's fault. So we're going to make sure it's not your fault, it's some other player's fault.
Yep.
Right?
Number one, real simple. Humans are weirdly good at this, but somehow gamers are bad at this. You need to figure out if a decision doesn't matter, and if it doesn't matter, don't worry about it. It's like worrying about whether to play rock or paper in paper, rock, scissors. It doesn't matter.
Just pick.
So we're gonna do a little exercise. We're gonna teach you. It does not matter if you played Neuroshima Hex, that's this game. It doesn't matter. We're not even gonna tell you the rules. I gotta place that hex somewhere on this map.
Right, so there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, plus 19 possible spaces to put this hexagon on this map.
How many choices do I have? How many people think I have one option? 2, 3, 4, 5. More than 5. So it turns out I only have 4 options.
The game is symmetrical. All of those 2s are the same thing. All of those 4s are the same thing. All of those 3s are the same thing.
If you can find symmetry in a game, you can ignore half of that symmetry.
There's people who will agonize, do I go in this spot or this spot? And they'll sit there thinking about it. It's like, you're just wasting your time. They're the same spot.
Even worse, let's say there's already a piece on the board. Now I'm putting a new piece out. Now how many options do I have? 1, raise your hand. 2, 3. Oh!
Whoa, people learned. People learned.
We first ran this panel at PAX, and I was like, you're the first audience to ever figure that out. And Scott was like, yeah, because we've never done this panel
You're
before.
the second audience to figure it out. Hey!
But this trend continues. You would be surprised how often you can find symmetry in games. Now there's a really asymmetric board, but even now, where do I put that piece? I can eliminate almost half the options because they're still redundant. So now we gotta talk about heuristics. My favorite fucking word. Heuristics are how you live your life.
Oh, you're more favorite than ersatz?
Ersatz is my word lately.
Yeah.
But heuristics this is near and dear to my heart. This is how you human. This is how you are a human being. Because if I take this clicker and I just huck it at one of you, you can very likely catch it. But if I huck it at you, none of you will be able to predict who I hucked it to until they catch it. But if the fact that I can huck something at someone and they can catch it is kind of amazing, because humans cannot do differential calculus in our heads that quickly.
Right, it's like you're gonna know, how do you know what force he even threw it with, at what angle? And it's going so fast, no human ever, not the most genius person, even with a computer, could ever calculate the exact arc that the thing will follow as it goes through the air to predict where it will land. And right, that's not how you catch things. You have a different way, a faster, better way of figuring out where things are going to land.
Yep, your brain is smarter than you. Because your brain will naturally cause you to look up at that object and you'll lock your neck at an angle. You'll then move forward and backward to make sure that that angle remains the same. If you happen to do that, that actually mimics a ballistic trajectory. You are guaranteed to catch the object.
Right, so rather than coming up with the answer, doing a bunch of analysis paralysis to calculate the exact right answer, you have some other simple rule and some simple system that also gets you at the right answer. But it's much faster and easier.
But here's the important thing. It's a heuristic. It's not a perfect rule. You're not simulating the universe to figure out if you can catch this thing I hucked at you. You're doing a very bare simulation. The simulation will be wrong in a lot of cases, but it'll usually be right. So it's a simplified rule that does not fully reflect reality.
I don't know, will the gaze heuristic work on the moon?
Yes. It'll work on any ballistic trajectory. With gravity.
What if I'm floating in space on one side of the moon, and you're floating in space on the other side of the moon, and you
still
throw
work.
it, and then the moon sort of bends it a little bit?
That'll still work, ballistic trajectory.
All right.
Where it won't work, this is where this limitation is, it will not help me know like if it's coming from an angle, I can't catch it. I have to be facing it, and I have to be able to move forward and backward. There are very many limitations in this calculation. It just so happens it's a calculation I can do very quickly. So there are two kinds of heuristics. Positional heuristics are how you determine how well you're doing relative to the other players. As you know, a simple positional heuristic in Mario Kart. If I'm in first place, I'm in first place. Most of you know that's not a very good heuristic. A more complex one. If I'm in second place, I'm in first place because of the blue shell. That's heuristics. You come up with simple rules to follow. What about in board games? In Settlers of Catan, there are very simple, obvious, direct heuristics you can use to play Settlers perfectly if you just learn them. There's very few actually useful strategies, and you can play Settlers very well. The other type of heuristic is a directional heuristic. That's the one we're going to be talking about for the rest of this panel. This is how you decide in a game what to do next.
Right, so instead of calculating everything in the universe, you have some sort of rules that you've developed or someone told you and you learned, and you use those rules to decide what to do on your turn, and by following those rules, you play quickly because the rules are fast.
Yep, so I might have a rule. If I see two bridges, this is a real life heuristic you should use. If I see two bridges and one of them looks like a piece of shit, use the less dangerous looking one.
Use the one without two snakes guarding it, right? Seems like a good...
That's a pretty good heuristic. Let's talk about a board game. We're at MAGFest. It's a gaming convention. Card games, hearts, like a card game of some kind, where you could count cards. You can count cards to figure out whether or not a card you play is an optimal thing or not. But you don't want to count every card everyone played because that's really hard. It's annoying. It's painful. So if you're playing hearts, just count what hearts were played. Don't worry about the other cards. Use a simplified mechanic. If you're playing a game like Tigris and Euphrates, I don't know how many points Scott has in every color. I just know Scott has more blue than anything else. Simple rules, simple counts, those kinds of things. An example of a heuristic is one, if I see this shirt, I will never wear it. But
two, if you're wearing that shirt, you better never pass on a bower.
If any of you have played this old trick-taking game called euchre, that's a heuristic I follow. Never pass on a bower. I have a rule. If I see a jack, I will pick it up. That is my rule. It serves me well. What about a game like Risk? Games have heuristics. Risk actually has a fairly complex heuristic. If you memorize that chart, you will give yourself perfect odds in Risk. You are guaranteed to have the best chance you could have of winning Risk.
You still might lose because it's a dice game and the dice might not come up in your favor, but you will have the best chance.
Yep. I'm not going to explain this chart. You can look this up on your own. We'll link to the slides from our website.
Right.
But if you follow these rules, this is a very complex heuristic. It took me a while to memorize and learn this. It's much more complex than one sentence that fits on a t-shirt. But if you play a lot of games and you think about this stuff, you'll personally develop more and more complex and advanced heuristics, and you'll just naturally get faster at games. Sports has this concept of fast and frugal heuristics. That's a Wikipedia page. Google for that, you'll find this list. It's a list of heuristics that are studied and proven to be effective. Like, let's see, recognition. If you have 5 options, and you don't know which one's the best one, but you recognize one of them, pick that one. There's probably a reason you've heard of it more often than the other ones.
Right.
Is that stupid? Yes. Is it simplistic? Yes. Is it effective? Hell yeah.
Right. Even if one of those other options you didn't pick is somehow stronger or the better move, you don't understand it because it's new to you. If you go with the one you know, you're going to be better at it. Like if there's 5 Magic the Gathering cards, you know how one of them works, you're going to be able to play that card effectively. If you get some crazy card with a wall of text on it, it might be the God card, but you don't know how to play it effectively, so you're going to take it in the draft, play it, and be like, I guess I lose even though I had the best card.
Remember, right? Salty bet? Always bet on Goku.
That's right.
So this is a game called Citadels, and we ruined it for ourselves because one day we were playing this game. You take cards, you play one. It's like a which cup is the poison in game.
It's basically cup and poison, right? From Princess Bride, right? That's what this game is. Only a lot more cups.
Yep.
Right. So the thing is, one day I'm like, you know what? I'm sitting there doing my poison cup thinking, right? Well, if I take this one, Rim will take that one, and if I take this one, he'll take that one. That means he's probably got that, so I should take this. And I'm like, wait a minute. I just take all the cards, I shuffle them up, and I pick one at random. Everyone sees me do this, and I get them the next person.
So now I've got the cards, and I'm like, fuck.
He doesn't know. Now he can't do any poison cup thinking because I picked a card randomly.
So I shuffle them randomly, pick one, and pass it to the left. We all did randomly, and then we were like, well, we ruined this game forever.
You can't psychology me if I didn't use psychology to pick.
I'm serious. If you don't know what to do in a game, just do something. And either you'll win, or you'll lose, and you'll learn something. And most importantly, you'll take your turn. But there's a more advanced strategy. And this is where I really want you to think about this. Some of these options are stupid. If you figure out what the stupid ones are, it's way easier to figure out what a stupid option is than what an optimal option is. Like, we're doing a panel. I have a lot of options. I could take my pants off. It's a bad idea, but there's nothing to stop me from doing that. I have a lot of options, but I intuitively understand that a lot of them are really, really bad advice. So if I narrow it down to 2 options that I think are pretty good, but I don't know which one is best, don't worry about it. You've already fought half the battle. You went from that to that. You're already better than most people at this game.
Right, so remove all those 4 crappy cards that you know immediately are not good to play. You're down to 2, now pick randomly. People still can't psychology you, at least not with a better than 50% shot. And, you still get all the benefits of you still going to play a good card. You're not going to play a worthless card by luck.
Most games go clockwise. Generally, the way games work, if a game goes clockwise, whoever sits to the right of you goes before you and will generally be able to beat you to anything you want to do. Whoever is to the left of you goes after you. You can beat them to anything they want to do. If I'm sitting to the right of Scott and I see he's doing a strategy...
Right, so let's say it's a game about colors and I'm focusing on green. If Rim focuses on green, he's going to take away all the green and I'm going to be boned.
Yep.
Right?
A more advanced version, pick the player at the table you think is smartest and just do whatever strategy they look like they're doing. They'll still beat you, but you'll come in second place. And you'll learn how to do their weird strategy. Specifically Yahtzee. Just play Yahtzee. Play Yahtzee until you are perfect at it.
Right, so the great thing about Yahtzee is that it is a one-player game, basically. When you play multiplayer Yahtzee, you're really just all playing solo Yahtzee at the same time, right? It's a solo game, and you can go play on a website, and there's a website, and that website can play perfect Yahtzee. Not only does it play perfect Yahtzee, it will watch you play Yahtzee by yourself and tell you how close you were to playing perfect Yahtzee, because it knows what it would have done if it had your dice. Right? And you just keep playing it until you increase how perfect your Yahtzee is. And you'll learn how to do better Yahtzee.
And Yahtzee teaches you a lot of basic skills, but more importantly, if you get good at Yahtzee, you'll notice Yahtzee's in a lot of other games. And in fact, there's a lot of sub-games that are in other games. Once you recognize those little sub-games, just like exercising one specific muscle in a gym, if you get good at those games, you can ignore those games in more complex games that include them and focus on the bigger picture. If you're not worried about how to do a Hadoken, you're better at Street Fighter because you're thinking, do Hadoken, not down, down, and left, left. We got to talk about this. Learn the fucking game. Actually read the rules. Right. Respect yourself and your friends enough to know the game and how it works.
Right. I mean, how much time do you spend when a game is slow? I've heard a lot. We didn't talk about D&D at all the first time we did this panel, but after we did it, a lot of people kept telling us D&D is really slow. Yeah, you know why? Because you're spending half the game reading the rule book, right? If you all knew the rules of D&D, you could just be like, bam, attack, bam, fireball, you're dead. You could go really quick. There's not a lot going on, right? Minus my HP, go.
Wait, what spells do I have? Wait, what's the spell? What do I roll?
What spells do I have available?
You've all heard the phrase, wait, what do I roll at the table? Yeah?
Right, that is why. You do not know the rules well enough, and that's kind of understandable because the book is like this, right? But even in a game where the book is only a few pages, even if they're a wall of text like those rules, if you master the rules, you will not waste time reading them. Also, you'll be able to make decisions faster because you just know all the rules.
Yep.
You want to look stuff up.
So, Some games have a lot of busy work, all that stuff we talked about before. If you have a friend who likes that busy work or knows it really well, or will like do the setup and like, okay, now it's the stock round, and he comes over and like futzes with the board a bunch and now you're good to go. One, never let that friend out of your sight for the rest of your life.
Make sure to treat
We've got our friend Chris who does this for us.
Treat that friend very well and know that they are very well appreciated and thanked.
Yep, and if you
buy them dinner.
Yep.
Bring them to MAGFest.
But that person gets something out of this too. They want to play the train game.
Yeah, someone doesn't learn the game well enough to be a facilitator if they don't want to play it, right?
Yep. So if you want to play a game that takes too long, learn to make it faster for your idiot friends. We're the idiot friends to our friend Chris. So
Scott Johnson.
That is the eponymous Scott Johnson.
Who's not here.
Yep.
Damn.
So Matt, our friend Matt, is taking his turn. What's Scott Johnson looking at? He's planning his turn in advance. When it's someone else's turn, think about what you're gonna do. Don't be that person who gets to the front of the line at Chipotle and they're like,
Right, and as soon as your turn is over, better not pull out your fucking phone and read Twitter. Jesus Christ, right? You're there to play the game, right? Pay attention to the goddamn game. If the game sucks and has, like we said, that downtime in it, well, that's the game's fault. But if you pull out Twitter immediately and aren't paying attention, that's on you.
And also I want to point out our friend Scott, the reason we keep bringing him up, he looks exactly like the two of Blue in Wizard. We were playing with him and his daughter the other night in a room, and the kid was like, "That's Daddy."
Okay.
All right, nerds. Looking at you, Magic players. Well, actually, I'm looking at you people who Kickstarted things. That's when I'm looking at Magic players.
Okay.
So, a lot of people will kickstart a game, play it once at a con, never play it again. If you play a game more than once, you'll get a lot faster at it. But simultaneously, if you play more than one game, you'll start to get faster at all games. Too many people play the same game over and over and over again. We do that too, but we play a lot of games over and over again. But most importantly, if you're playing a game and you just don't know what to do, like really, just do something. Just take your turn. If you don't know what to do, like you're really stumped, thinking harder is not going to make you better.
Right, there isn't some like magical amount of time you're gonna spend there and suddenly everything will be great. It's only gonna get worse.
It's not like you'll think forever and suddenly out of the ether, king to bishop 5. Like that's not gonna happen. And if your friends still take a long time after you force them to watch this, there's a very simple solution. We misattributed this quote a long time ago to Rainer Knizia. We're pretty sure that was actually Klaus Teuber who said it.
We could be wrong about that too.
But the possibly apocryphal story is that in an interview, someone asked this game designer, your games take a long time. Like, what do you do? Like, how do you make the game faster? And he basically said, well, if our friends start taking too long on their turn, we start chanting, move or I will hit you. Move or I will hit you. And if they don't move, we hit them. I'm not saying be a jerk to your friends, especially, like there's a lot of accessibility reasons why a game might take long. But if your friend is looking at Twitter instead of figuring out their turn, and then they don't know what to do in their turn, I'm not saying hit them, but I'm saying hit them.
I think you want to just metaphorically hit them, right?
Yeah.
Make it so that they know that it's unacceptable for them to be behaving in that way. You won't play games with them anymore. They're causing, right? Let them know, right? Don't necessarily physically hit them.
Yeah, like there's a lot of ways to do it. Maybe you get all Pagro, like just pull out a sand timer and just put it on the table. Like at the anime con where you hand someone deodorant. But last and least, people keep talking about Monopoly. That's not a joke. They're selling that. It's just a longer version of Monopoly because they know. But if a game isn't fun enough to be worth your time, just don't play it. Like, don't waste your life on this crap. There's better things to do. In fact, there's a game. If you can find this game, because
you can't.
Monopoly sucks, but there's that tiny bit of fun. This is a game inspired by Monopoly. It's an old indie game. It's hard to find.
Impossible to find.
It has the exact same fun of Monopoly.
You roll the dice, you move around the board, you buy properties, people land on them, they pay you money, right? Same basic idea.
But unlike Monopoly, it ends.
Because when you land on someone's property, you basically lose everything. Like, you're just boned.
Much like this panel. I hope this was enjoyable. If
If you think we're good, which I guess the clapping people must think that for some reason, you can come get this flyer and learn all about us. I don't know why you want to do that either.
This will link to literally like 60 or 70 of the videos of these panels we've done at other conventions, including video of this panel that we ran at PAX Unplugged a little while ago. You didn't even have to be here.
That you foolishly stayed in here and watched, even though I told you not to. If you think we suck and you stayed in this room for masochistic reasons, you can get one of these flyers also to tell MAGFest we suck so you don't accidentally get someone else in trouble for giving a shitty panel.
We will also post the slides along with the slides for the real harm of games, where we talked about gaming addiction earlier today, on our website.
And if you want to see us again at MAGFest, we'll be doing another panel at some point.
On Sunday, competitive versus
Sunday
casual.
at 11:30 in the morning.
An unsolvable
if you're
problem.
awake and here, I will be. I guess I have to be.
Thank you all. Enjoy MAGFest.
Okay, bye.